Live everywhere.
Daily Co's Radio on netrootsradio.com presents
David Walton, Kagro in the Morning Show. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It is Thursday, October 27th, 2016, and I'm trying to get the show started here, but I don't know. I'm caught up in something this morning, as usually happens when we're watching along on Twitter to see what everybody else is talking about, and it's had me shift gears. I'm incensed about something at the moment. Not difficult to get incensed about people complaining about what's going on Morning Joe. That usually happens. Of course, I leave that job to you. I outsource the outrage to others and let them watch Morning Joe and tell me what's outrageous about it. But this morning, what's being circulated, I'm just going to get right to this, is I guess a clip of, is it this morning's transcript? I don't know. Mika Brzezinski and Joe Scarborough going crazy. They're upset because I guess there's not enough coverage of the Clinton Foundation scandals as they see them. And they are upset that there's been so much attention paid by David Farenthold, chiefly to the Donald J. Trump Foundation and its dealings. They're very upset that somehow, I guess Mika is bothered by the fact that the Trump Foundation's dealings, she says, are called sleazy, trashy, etc., but that somehow perhaps the worst that has been said about the Clinton Foundation is that it's somehow ethically challenged. I don't know if I understand exactly the way she was breaking things down. But of course then it comes around to essentially, well, so much more money was being kicked around in the Clinton Foundation. Of course, much more of it was being used for actual charitable purposes, but never mind that. That's not the narrative. The narrative is bigger amounts of money in the Clinton Foundation. Somebody thinks something maybe kind of sort of went wrong over there, so we better look into it. But look at how they're beating up on Trump and the Trump Foundation. And Scarborough, in fact, goes on to say, well, you know, what his quote is, you're shaking down the world for $66 million over in the Clinton Foundation side instead of a Rolex watch or a life-size portrait. I mean, Farenthold, he says, is going to win a Pulitzer Prize for finding a life-size portrait of Donald Trump that he paid money for with a foundation. We're talking $66 million here, maybe $100 million. He's upset about this. And then, by the way, they go on to say at some point in this conversation, it's all legal anyway. It's, of course, not legal. It's self-dealing and thieving from charity. But I wanted to point this out. In addition to their being wrong about the scale and wrong about the legality, etc., David Farenthold didn't set out to investigate the Trump Foundation. He stumbled upon the Trump Foundation. David Farenthold's story was, his question was, hey, it's been 4 months since you skipped a debate because it was being hosted by Megyn Kelly, or moderated by Megyn Kelly, who is back in the news, by the way. Excellent opportunity to bring this up again. And you skipped that debate, and so that you wouldn't be called a chicken, or whatever it was you were worried about, you decided instead, well, you said, I'm not going to the debate because I'm going to have a big, giant fundraiser for veterans, because we love our veterans. I love them so much. Stroke the flag, etc., and I'm going to raise all this money. And then he has like a telethon for veterans. Okay, fine, whatever, great. You're going to raise money for veterans, fantastic. Of course, he exaggerates the claims of how much he's gotten. He says he's going to put $1 million of his own money into it. You know, all kinds of claims. And 4 months down the road, David Farenthold says, "Hey, I wonder whatever happened to all that money. I mean, I don't know what it is. I don't have anything to go on, maybe, but something tells me we'd have heard a lot more about this money being distributed. You'd think that would be the sort of thing that they would have events centered around. While he was barnstorming the country campaigning, he would stop at each of the places where he was donating money and give them a giant check or something like that, right? But that's not happening. It did happen later if you have that, maybe you've paired that memory. I don't know. You're not listening to the show. If you've paired those memories and said, oh, no, he absolutely did deliver on all of his promises, you're one of his fans, you're probably not listening. But you get the idea. You probably saw this happen out there in the wild. Remember, though, that when Farenthold began asking that question, the answer was, I don't know what happened to the money. I didn't deliver. The answer was he did not deliver the money. only after Farenthold's probing began did he start writing checks to these charities. And he didn't even write those checks, of course. And in some cases, well, this is a totally different part of the story, but what ended up happening, of course, was Farenthold then said, well, all the money that came in, were you lying about that? No. People really donated that money. Well, where did that money go? And if you look on the website and you recall the events of the day, as it turns out, he was parking all the money that people were sending to help veterans in the Trump Foundation. And so at that point, the Trump Foundation becomes a story. What is the Trump Foundation? What does it do? How does it spend its money? Where is the money going? And how come none of it has gone to any veterans organizations yet? And along the way, in asking that question, he realized, oh my God, this Trump Foundation turns out to be his funky little personal piggy bank that he uses to buy portraits of himself and Tim Tebow helmets and everything, and he hasn't given a dime of it to any veterans yet. But even when he got around to giving the money to the veterans, there was a larger story there that for years, for a decade or more, he'd been living high on the hog on other people's money. It's not just where he or buying portraits for himself or Tim Tebow helmets. I mean, this is money that's used to settle lawsuits for the Trump Organization, on behalf of the Trump Organization, or on behalf of its subsidiaries like Mar-a-Lago. This is money that's used to buy himself, tickets to fancy black tie dinners where he can rub elbows with celebrities or maybe even rub other parts of people's bodies. Who knows, depending on how many Tic Tacs he's got with him at the time. This is a lifestyle slush fund, and he was parking the veterans' money in it, and I guess drawing interest on it too. If he said there was $6 million sitting there for 4 months, that's not nothing. That's a portrait, on the cheap side, I guess, of a portrait. Anyway, but Farenthold's story isn't about how sleazy the Trump Foundation is per se. It begins with how sleazy it is to skip a debate because it was hosted by Megyn Kelly, say you were raising funds for veterans, bilking people out of the money thinking it was going to go to veterans, parking it instead in your personal slush fund and earning interest off of it and buying who knows what with it, and then finally not even giving any of that money to veterans until nasty little David Farenthold actually said, so who's getting the money? And only then does Donald Trump actually begin to distribute any of the money. And then it just becomes an even bigger story. Not only do you follow where all the money goes in the Trump Foundation, etc., but then you got big question marks like, how come when veterans charities are getting the money, the checks say Stuart Rahr Foundation instead of the Donald J. Trump Foundation? How does that happen? Who's Stuart Rahr? Why is he doing this? Now, I mean, does anybody have anything at all even remotely like that from the Clinton Foundation? Where, are we finding that AIDS clinics in Africa are in fact being paid for by somebody else with an agreement to pretend that the money came from the Clinton Foundation? I've never seen that alleged, and you likely won't, because there's no way in hell that happened. So the ends, I don't know. I mean, I guess it's in the end, it's just another story of how Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski have their heads up their asses and will just say whatever the hell they feel like, regardless of whether it's based in fact or not. But that one in particular bothers me. It bothers me that any of us, this side, that side, anybody, if you forgot that Donald Trump skipped the debate and spent the day pretending he was raising money for veterans and intended to abscond with that money unless David Farenthold caught him, you're a terrible American and you need to repent of yourself. I will help you. Do not forget this. Thank you. Okay, the show's over. Greg, you want to do anything?
Nah, that was pretty great. It was just such an epic rant I couldn't possibly interrupt you.
All right. Well, I wouldn't know.
And I'm pretty good at interrupting you, but I just couldn't. That was just so good.
Well, thank you. They deserve everybody needs to be reminded of this. Donald Trump meant to steal $6 million from veterans, and David Farenthold caught him, and Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski are mad. Why? You weren't going to get any of that money. You weren't? Well, because Clinton done it. All right, fine. Then find me the same story. Go ahead. You won't. But, I don't know. If anybody wants to endorse stealing veterans money, go ahead. Floor is open.
not me.
Yeah, I didn't think so. Okay. I'll let you do some other stories now.
Well, you want polling stories or other stories? We have both. Which one do you want it? Door number one or door number two?
People love the polls.
People love the polls. Let's just have some. There's some good ones this morning.
Okay.
So let's start with CNBC. CNBC has a Hillary Clinton plus 9, and it's a very good pollster, Hart Research, and Public Opinion Strategies on the Republican side. So it's a joint poll. And plus 9 is a lot. Remember, if you have an 8-point lead, you can expect polls to be between 2 and 14. And, in fact, that's what we have. Clinton leads by 6 points today in the Washington Post ABC tracking poll. It's now Washington Post ABC, not because the polling firm has changed, but because the Washington Post, as of now, is helping to sponsor it.
Uh-huh.
So this is the same Washington Post ABC tracking poll. It's been for the past few days. It was 12 a couple of days. Now it's 6. Is that a big change? I don't know. Maybe. Hard to tell. Talk to me tomorrow. They do it every day. And again, if the average is between 2 and 14, or the average is 8, and you expect the margin of error between 2 and 14, this isn't a radical change. We have IBD tip, very, very friendly to Donald Trump. Hillary Clinton now leading by 2. That's the highest lead she's had in a while. USC, LA Times poll, very friendly to Trump, now is formally tied. At least that's how Real Clear Politics is describing it. And we have a Pennsylvania poll from the great Upshot Siena collaboration with Nate Cohen showing Hillary Clinton leads by 7 points in Pennsylvania this morning. When you're trying to figure out where the polling is leading you on all of this, and I did send a graphic right at the bottom of your Skype feed of just today's latest polls from Real Clear Politics, because they do a real good job of summing everything up in one place that you could see it. And basically everything is in blue for Clinton except Louisiana, where she's losing by 15. But she's ahead by 26 in California, and she's ahead in Michigan, and she's ahead in New Hampshire, and the actual numbers on the poll, whether it's 2 or 4 or 9 in New Hampshire, don't really matter that much. New Hampshire's a tough place to poll. Step back from the polling and look and see where everybody's going. If Mike Pence has to go to Utah, and Clinton is sending surrogates to Arizona, then that's what's going on.
Okay.
How do we know more about what's going on? There's this fantastic story, which I storified because of the tweets that accompanied it by Joshua Green and Sasha Eisenberg in Bloomberg today about exactly how the Trump campaign is planning on doing their media empire. They invested a lot of money on their Facebook page so that they could do video and all this sort of stuff. In other words, they didn't just spend it on hats. They certainly didn't spend it on traditional polling. They didn't spend it on get out the vote. They also spent it on media. So let me just give you a quick read of some of the very good storifies that I have here. This one from Joshua Green. Sasha Eisenberg and I got exclusive access for our new Bloomberg cover inside the Trump bunker with 12 days to go. And that's at Business Week, I guess. Why the Trump machine is built to last beyond. Okay. Trump camp shared strategy polling, ads, fundraising, and showed off secret data ops codenamed Project Alamo. Not that they feel besieged or anything.
Okay.
Right? Not that they think they're going to go down in a blaze of glory. Number 3, led by Kushner.
Yeah.
Jared Kushner, that's the son-in-law, married to Ivanka. Trump team drew data from the RNC, Cambridge, and Facebook to make Alamo a small donor money machine with a list of 12 million names. But the Trump campaign's own internal election models show results similar to, quote, similar to Nate Silver. They know they're losing badly, single digits. They've ID'd 13.5 million persuadable voters in 16 battleground states and say they think they can still win, but not by going positive. The Trump advisor says, on the record, we have 3 major voter suppression operations underway, that's the quote, including one targeting African-American voters. And that's pretty skeezy, but let me read exactly what they say here. On October 24th, Trump's team began placing spots on select African-American radio stations. In San Antonio, a young staffer showed off a South Park-style animation he created of Clinton delivering the Super Predator line using audio from her original 1996 soundbite. As cartoon text popped up around her, Hillary thinks African Americans are super predators.
Mm-hmm.
The animation will be delivered. Now, let's not, suspend disbelief a little bit about how effective this is going to be, but this is a story.
Yeah.
The animation will be delivered to certain African Americans voters through Facebook dark posts, non-public posts whose viewership the campaign controls, so that, as Parcale, P-I-R-S-C-A-L-E, Parcale puts it, only the people who want to see it see it. Now, I don't know how you recruit extra people to vote for you if only the people you want to see it see it.
I think they're supposed to share it.
The aim is to depress Clinton's vote total. We know because we modeled this, says the official, it will dramatically affect her ability to turn these people out. Perhaps they spelled those people wrong. I don't know.
It counts.
Yeah,
Just the
but
same.
it counts. We'll count that. So back to the tweet storm. Again, full story here. So Trump camp has targeted Facebook dark posts at Dem-leaning but infrequent black voters to discourage them into staying home. Another takeaway from our story is possible plan for future Trump TV network. Trump spending campaign dollars to build massive support list. He'll have 12 to 14 million emails, 2.5 million donors, and because paid for with campaign funds, he'll own it. A future audience for Trump TV. Bannon on the record. This is the pipe that makes the connection between Trump and the people, connects him to an ever-expanding audience. If Trump loses, here's the nightmare GOP scenario. He merges with Bannon to start a political media movement, an American UKIP.
Yeah.
Sound crazy?
Yes.
Breitbart's London editor, Raheem Kassam, just quit to run for leader of UKIP.
Uh-huh.
His slogan, make UKIP great again.
Again? All right. But okay, yes, obviously lifted directly from, it was lifted originally too, so I guess everybody's entitled to it. He should sue him, though.
He could. From the piece, Trump TV was Kushner's idea, posed as a threat to Roger Ailes during the primaries when Trump was unhappy with Fox coverage. And the story published says, according to a source close to Trump, the idea of a Trump TV network originated during the Republican primaries as a threat Kushner issued to Roger Ailes when Trump's inner circle was unhappy with the tenor of Fox News' coverage. The warring factions eventually reconciled, but Trump became enamored by the power of his draw after 5 media companies expressed interest. One thing Jared always tells Donald is if the New York Times and cable news mattered, he'd be at 1% in the polls. Trump supporters really don't have a media outlet where they feel they're represented. That's because Fox is too smart for them. They need something dumbed down.
I guess.
CNN has gone fully against Trump. MSNBC is assumed to be against Trump. Not if you watch Morning Joe. And Fox is somewhere in the middle. What we found is that our people have organized incredibly well on the web. Reddit literally had to change their rules because it was becoming all Trump. Growing the digital footprint has really allowed us to take his message directly to the people. That's an interesting comment here because CNN, with Corey Lewandowski and Jeffrey Lord, is assumed to be the one against Trump. Probably because they have Ana Navarro and she's great. MSNBC is assumed to be against Trump, and Fox is somewhere in the middle.
Okay.
In the middle of what? In the middle of being against Trump and fully against Trump?
That's all I can assume.
I don't know. Maybe they mean, for Trump and against Trump, and they're somewhere in the middle, so that maybe they're, in their minds, Fox is fair and balanced, which is pretty funny. And of course, they don't want something fair and balanced. That's all because of Megyn Kelly, and again, as you pointed out, Megyn Kelly in the news. But Bill O'Reilly, Sean Hannity, and Fox and Friends are completely different and separate from the rest of the Fox News group, including people like Chris Wallace, Shep Smith, and et cetera. It may well be that those 3 entities, Bill O'Reilly, Sean Hannity, and the Fox and Friends people, which has to be the dumbest morning show ever, they may go over to Trump TV. They may be perfect recruits.
Yeah, maybe, I guess. Although I have my doubts about their ability to pay them what they're getting at Fox.
Well, they can pay a lot of money. It doesn't mean they're not going to go bankrupt. Look how much money Trump overpays for his hotel, which is going bust.
Well, yeah.
He picked a bad location in D.C. and he overpaid for it, and now he can't get anybody to fill the room. So it doesn't mean he didn't pay top dollar. He pays top dollar to himself.
I mean,
for the campaign space that he rents to himself from himself.
Yes. Well,
right?
when the campaign space,
top dollar.
I guess where I have a problem is the he pays part. He doesn't.
Well, yeah, and it can't be sustained. But then again, just because it can't be sustained doesn't mean he's not going to pay up front a lot of money.
Yeah, I got
to incite to lure, whatever the right word is, induce these people to leave. Why not? Roger Ailes isn't there anymore. They may have to be fair and balanced. They don't like it. They're going to leave.
I guess. I mean, well, certainly without Roger Ailes there, it's not nearly as much fun for those guys.
Right. Anyway, so the idea has taken off, and 5 media companies have expressed interest. And the way Blake Honchel put it on Twitter is my takeaway from this story is Steve Bannon is building a political Death Star.
I guess so. Oh, that's funny because I had referred yesterday on Twitter to Trump Tower as if Moss Isley had gone condo.
Mm-hmm. Bottom line, Trump ain't walking away empty-handed, has grifted GOP and donors to build the list worth as much as $112 million that he now owns. All that and much more from the story.
Well, he's great at stealing stuff. There's no doubt about that.
Right. Let's see. So what else do we have here? We have the Yale Record.
Oh.
America's oldest college humor magazine.
The humor is old?
Yeah, some of it.
Okay.
In its 144-year history, the Yale Record has never endorsed a Democratic candidate for president. In fact, we've never endorsed any candidate for president.
Okay.
This is in part due to our strong commitment to being a tax-exempt 501c3 organization, which mandates that we are absolutely prohibited from directly or indirectly participating in or intervening in any political campaign on behalf of or in opposition to any candidate for elective public office.
So the funniest jokes are nonprofit.
Right?
Yes.
This year's presidential election is highly unusual, but ultimately no different. The Yale Record believes both candidates to be equally unendorsable due to our faithful compliance with the tax code. In particular, we do not endorse Hillary Clinton's exemplary leadership during her 30 years in the public eye. We do not support her impressive commitment to serving and improving this country, a commitment to which she has dedicated her entire professional career. Because of unambiguous tax law, we do not encourage you to support the most qualified presidential candidate in modern American history, nor do we encourage all citizens to shatter the glass ceiling once and for all by electing Secretary Clinton on November 8th. The Yale Record has no opinion whatsoever on Jill Stein. Signed, the editorial board of the Yale Record.
Okay.
I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah, well done.
Yep. Very well done.
They should get those smart kids something to do.
You know what else is well done?
Trump stays.
No, nothing to do with Trump.
Oh.
Hillary Clinton's going to have her victory party in New York.
Yes.
She's going to have it in New York City.
True.
She's going to have it at the Javits Center.
Okay, good. Not Trump. Plaza.
Do you know what the Javits Center looks like?
Big.
It is big. It's huge. It's classy.
Oh, good.
And it's made out of glass. This is probably the world's largest glass ceiling.
Glass. Oh, okay. Oh, don't break it.
Yeah, well, if you go, wear your helmets because you don't know. But, I mean, it's very impressive.
Funny. Yeah.
That she is, in fact, doing that.
Okay, I hope it's clean.
Get the message,
Yes.
Where it's happening, why it's happening, all that sort of stuff.
True. I was just sort of thinking, well, say Jacob Javits, he's a Republican.
Well, there's a lot of messages here. They are a very, very, how shall we put this? They're very good at what they do.
They know what they're doing. It's like they have the Yale Daily, what is it? Record? Have I got the wrong group? Yeah, all right, well, it's like they're full of smart people.
Right. Look, if you look at the very, very bottom of your Skype feed, I'm going to send you over an actual picture of the Javits Center so you get the idea here.
Yeah, okay. I don't know if I've been in the Javits Center.
I don't usually go to the automobile conventions and stuff like that, but, we could, if it weren't for the expense, and also hotel expense, Netroots Nations could fit in there. It's big.
Well,
Remember Chicago? Think that big.
That was very big. That was at McCormick Place. This is enormous. Look at this. It kind of looks Death Star-y in a way. Okay, so lots of glass ceiling and lots of well, you got to have all that framework to hold that up. Okay. Now this is going to be at night. So
It's
Do
still
they
glass.
know that? Okay, well, everybody look up.
Even at night, it's still glass.
It's still glass. Hasn't changed. It's just you can't. Well, all right. And there's no chance of seeing any stars in the middle of New York City. But still, the point is, it's glass, and the story has been printed.
Right.
So okay.
Anyway, so there's that. So I thought that was actually pretty cool.
There's a
We
lot
have
of
the story
scaffolding up
of
there,
Jason
walking.
Chaffetz re-endorsing Trump again.
Okay. Oh yes. Right.
Right? He had unendorsed, and then he said, "I'm not endorsing him. I'm just
Right.
voting for him."
Yes.
And everybody said, "Dude, voting for him is endorsing him."
Announcing that you're going to vote for him, is
Publicly.
That's what it means.
It's what we call an endorsement. All right, and my last piece for today, well, maybe we'll go look at the Pundit Roundup and see what else we got, although I think mostly what's on the Pundit Roundup is what we talked about yesterday. And actually, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday this week, I think we had some good stuff to discuss. But today I'm going to finish, and you had Joan on yesterday to talk about the Affordable Care Act. But Chris Hayes has a nice little tweet storm on the Affordable Care Act and how it plays politically. So he says, I don't think the politics of the Affordable Care Act have really worked out the way either supporters or opponents anticipated. Bill Clinton famously thought once it was implemented it would deliver tangible benefits and be a big political boon for Democrats. I know that because I heard him say that in person. He was at Netroots Nation, and he told us that. That was Bill Kristol's notorious warning to ours back during Clinton's healthcare push.
Okay.
Echoed in David Frum's warnings after the Affordable Care Act was signed. Clearly that hasn't happened. You really don't see D's running hard on the ACA, though you also don't see them running against it. Many on the right thought the law would be a substantive disaster and thus a political disaster, but that hasn't happened either. Hence, repeal and replace is this kind of idea fixe for the GOP for 7 years. It simply doesn't have a ton of political traction. I said last night, said Christopher Hayes, I said last night the politics of the ACA are less like Social Security, the Democratic dream, and more like abortion, eternally contested. Now, maybe that's just because it's still relatively early. In 20 years, Obamacare will be like Medicare, but I tend to think it won't, which is due to the central political feature of the law, the disrupting of the existing market as little as possible. Many on the left were unhappy with that.
Yeah.
Many on the right didn't believe that, but they set out to do that. Why? Because the big political lesson, Chris says, of Clinton's failure, that is to say back in the 1980s, is that if people think, or 1990s,
right.
the big people think you will take away their health insurance, you're dead in the water. So you have three elements. Lots of cost reduction stuff on provider delivery stuff, largely invisible to consumers. We'll get back to that. Number two, consumer rights, pre-existing conditions and all of that. Mm-hmm. That mean no lifetime caps, pre-existing conditions, etc. And three, exchanges and Medicaid expansion. Medicaid expansion has been very successful, but has been stymied by GOP governors, and the people it benefits are not particularly politically powerful. Then there are the exchanges, which are the most high visibility part of the law and have been uneven in their success and still represent a tiny sliver, which means a law designed for political purposes to be as invisible and low impact as possible now remains weirdly invisible.
Aha.
And because of that fundamental stealth and how it works, remains an abstraction to the vast majority of voters. And because it's an abstraction, the politics around it feel more like flag burning than a massive government program. And that's his point. So they made it so that it didn't disrupt your health care. Less than 10%, maybe 6% of people are actually affected by what are supposed to be one-time rate hikes to stabilize the market because the companies misread who was going to come on. A lot of younger people who were healthy didn't get on because they didn't want to pay the money, but as the penalties go up, that should change over time. I mean, there's a number of things built in to make the Affordable Care Act work a little bit better. But Atrios had a great point, and he said a lot of this has been invested, a lot of the political stuff, a lot of the political capital, a lot of the rancor, a lot of the arguing, a lot of the public, oh, I know this one person over here who couldn't keep his plan, and all this other stuff has been built around the exchanges and the non-functioning individual market. Remember, before ACA, the individual market was awful.
Yes.
You had junk plans that didn't pay for actual insurance. You could get thrown off at any time. So it wasn't like that was a functioning place to begin with. Atrios makes the simple point that it would have been a whole lot easier to just take that portion, that small portion of the market, and just put them on Medicare and Medicaid.
Yeah. Well, that's That's true.
And might have happened except for Joe Lieberman, which is why I will never forgive him.
Well, yes. Nor should you. But, all right, well, I guess that's still...
When you need 60 votes, and that's the way they wanted to do it, and he was the 60th vote, and he absolutely refused to consider a public option or anything like it, and certainly never would have gone on, along with putting this on Medicare and Medicaid. I blame him.
Yeah. And...
it's rare you can blame a single individual for everything that went wrong.
True.
In this case, I'll make an exception.
All right, and I'll be willing to go along with it.
It's my state. I feel responsible.
It was rather foolish. I mean, I'm sure at the time. Well, of course, we were also at the peak of the Pete Peterson entitlement fever.
Right, and Joe Lieberman was still felt to have some kind of credibility.
Right, and he totally bought into that whole thing. And now years later, and not even that many years later, as it turns out. Once again, the stupid hippies were right, actually putting people on that program, not only moving them to Medicare, and Medicaid actually helps stabilize the program as a whole, saves money overall, and if you really believed for some reason that there needed to be entitlement reform to keep costs under control, that was your answer. We've been answering it that way for 7 years now, and still, though, no one's really listening to Joe Lieberman at all, of course, but still, there's still that fury out there. And that was the focus of half of the last debate, was the premise that entitlements were out of control again.
Right. And the examples brought up were the committee to misrepresent nonpartisanship by really being a Pete Peterson-funded think tank. I don't remember their exact name. A committee for a new American century in healthcare, whatever they call themselves. But basically it's the same thing. The committee for budget, whatever, that Chris Wallace used as the data source to get everybody in his debate to agree that was the premise that you started with, right? It's a Pete Peterson funded foundation that all that stuff came from. It's not a nonpartisan think tank in that sense. In any case, there are some subtleties here because Adrios is talking about the exchange market, not the entire healthcare plan. And back in the day, people were talking about public auction and single payer as an option for the entire healthcare plan. So the subtlety there is not just the exchange part, which is a very small part. But in retrospect, sure would have made a whole lot more sense.
Yeah. Well, lost opportunity, but it was.
But you get you go with the votes you can get, not the votes you wish you had, right? And that's part of the sausage making that happens in Washington, and people hate it, but there it is.
Yeah. Unless we kill the filibuster somewhere along the line, but
well, that makes it easier to pass new stuff, but you still have to have the House for that to happen.
Yes. Also makes it easier to repeal good stuff later on if the pendulum swings the other way. It's a little weird, but
but you have to have the White House to protect against that, right? With vetoes.
Right, because overriding a veto is still as difficult as undoing a filibuster, and more so.
A little bit, maybe 7 votes more so.
Mm-hmm. And of course poses the same problem in the House. One of the few things that requires a 2/3.
Well, with Jason in the House, I'm not worried.
Right, Jason's in the House, everybody. Yeah, that was something.
Jason Chaffetz. That's what he calls himself on Twitter.
Right, and so if you want to log on and yell at him, at Jason in the House. Easy to remember, easy to spell, just like it sounds.
Anyway, you started the show off with a great rant. I think it's all true. I think that there's still big stories about Trump to come. Arguing now in terms of the polling nerds is not whether or not the race has tightened. It hasn't. And it's not whether or not Clinton's going to win. She will. We've been saying that for months. But rather, it's exactly what's the size of the lead. Is it 6 points? Is it 5 points? Is it 8 points? You can pick your poison. You can pick your polling average. It's somewhere between 5 to 8 points right now. Could it still grow? Maybe. Tomorrow is a good day to do some oppo dropping so that you get the Sunday shows to talk about it. Maybe today. We'll see. I'm not counting on it. I think that there's, it's always nice if something like that happens and it helps your side, but that's not the dynamics of the race right now. The dynamics of the race right now are with the millennials coming along and deciding that they want to vote for Hillary in greater numbers than they decided they wanted to vote for Obama in 2012. Parts of the Democratic coalition are coming together. The purpose of WikiLeaks dumps is to try to disrupt that. the purpose of the stuff we read to you with Josh Green about what Steve Bannon and the Trump campaign are planning to suppress the vote is all designed to disrupt that. That's not going to happen. They completely misunderstand Bernie voters. You could tell that in his speeches. You know, when Trump talks about Bernie voters, I don't look at these WikiLeaks. You guys should all go back and redo it. It was stolen from you. Yeah, right. I mean, you're talking to Susan Sarandon there, but maybe 9 other people. But everybody else in the world gets it and understands what you're doing, and it ain't going to work.
Yeah, not likely. But they got nothing else to do.
Right, they got nothing else to do. Nor do we, because, we still got a week and a half left, So there it is. That's my summary for today. This is Greg Dworkin speaking with my friend David Waldman, Kagro in the morning. And you got, I don't know, maybe an hour and 20 minutes left on the show. We'll see where it takes you. I don't know if you want to do more on the Fahrenheit, comparison to the remember, Bill Clinton isn't running, by the way. People tend to forget that.
Right.
He's not the one that's on the ballot. And, whatever it is that you want to talk about, generally it comes down to, I don't like the way it looks, as opposed to what Trump is doing actually wound up with the Attorney General in New York pulling the plug on the foundation.
Yeah.
Those are not equivalent things. These things are not both the same. They haven't pulled the plug
on the Clinton Foundation. I mean, they certainly could try, but they haven't.
Yeah. The fact of the matter is, Clinton Foundation money, 90% of it goes to programs. And Trump Foundation money, like 100% of it, tries to go in his pocket. Yeah.
Well, that's the truth of it. I mean, the sticking point here is that they have simply told their people the opposite, and they believe it. We've been over it earlier in the campaign. People don't understand, just like they don't understand oversampling, but that doesn't stop them from running around saying oversampling means you're cheating. Likewise, the fact that the Clinton Foundation spends a lot of its money directly gets read by them as, well, how much money did the Clinton Foundation give to charity? 0. Because they very rarely
9%,
give
9%.
grants. It's 9%.
What? There is a number, but it's very, very small.
So they take that to mean that means 91% of the money went into the Clintons' pockets. That's how they view it, because 9% went to charity. 9% was granted to other charities. The rest of it got used
stuff that
directly.
Work they do themselves, and they buy, supplies and other things and do it themselves because they don't trust other foreign governments. They figure if you give it to foreign governments, then it all disappears. So they buy it themselves, and that's how come they spend so much on programmatic things. That's just the way it was constructed, and it was constructed purposely for that reason.
Yep. Well, that's basically the problem with it, and essentially the people out there who hate the Clintons just feel convinced of the other thing, and that's true.
Besides, one of the things they work on is AIDS, and AIDS is icky.
Yeah, well, that's true too. They don't like that. Unfortunately, there's no time to talk them out of it, and no amount of time would ever allow us to talk them out of it. They just don't want to hear it. So I guess, I don't know. There's no fighting it at this point except to say, for some of these guys, mute them and move on. Let's fight the election and win it and let them.
And just remind people, as I did this morning, that, the loudest monkeys have the smallest balls.
That is what they say.
It's a study. It's science.
I worked on the loudness
with
part of the study. So.
I was blinded by science, but the fact of the matter is that's what the study says.
Yeah. It just reminded me of another story I'll have to bring up. Okay. Well,
all right. This is my long introduction to leaving. So why don't you bring up that story? Take care, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Okay. Thanks very much, Greg. Another great start. We have, I think we made a good go of it for the first 40 minutes or so. What was I talking about? Balls. That's right. You heard it. Only because the word got mentioned. Did I put this in? Did I put the balls in my pocket at any point? I don't know. I almost wish I had. That way I could tell you who brought this to my attention. It'll come to mind as I search around. I'm trying to think. Goodness. Well, I don't know if I can bring it to mind, and I can't scan fast enough to find the person who sent it to me. It's another of our friends and listeners and frequent Twitter contributors, but it's days ago now that I put this aside. He just happened across, I never did stop to ask him how he happened across this, but he came across a new product for AR-15s. Well, you might as well just blurt that part out. So AR-15s, I should point out, for those of you not particularly familiar with it, and again, I'm not a gun, guy, and I'm not into the technology of guns, but having traced their use and accidental shootings over the last couple of years, I've gotten to learn quite a bit. So, without actually owning each of these models, I know a little bit about sort of what they're about and how they work and what people do with them. AR-15 is enormously popular, obviously, for a number of reasons, not the least of which is it looks like an awesome ninja gun, is basically what's going on. But functionally speaking, it's actually quite simple and not only, relatively easy to use and have fun with because it looks like an awesome ninja gun, but it is a little bit like, I don't know, I think I've heard someone describe it as sort of Barbie dolls for men, and that accessories are the name of the game. I don't know if that's really the right parallel, but accessories are huge for them. And AR-15s come in sort of varying shapes and sizes and construction and quality as well in different price ranges. But you can add all sorts of fun things to them in addition to just getting like gigantic extended magazines for them if you're in a jurisdiction where those are still legal, or 100-round drums that you can put on them. You can get different kinds of, attachments for them and laser sights and big sniper scopes, and you can get tripods and I guess, do they call them bipods? So you can kind of play sniper with them. You can get tactical front grips for them so that you can kind of shoot them machine gun style down low, or you can use the tactical grip to keep your hand off of the barrel area, which though they have the sort of ventilated barrel shield that's supposed to prevent you from having to hold on to that hot barrel as you're firing anything. But tactical grips likewise will allow you to grip the gun forward without endangering yourself or your hands or what have you. Anyway, so here's this new product. Maybe you've heard of. I don't know whether I hope you've heard of it or not. Truck nuts, the stupid product that you put on that actually looks like testicles, like a dog or a bull might have. They do have them, or humans, except that we wear pants, and so, they're not ordinarily seen hanging down in the way they are with dogs, bulls, other animals that whose testicles you might be looking at, and I mean you. Anyway, so truck nuts are for people who, for whatever reason, think it's important or interesting or fun to let everyone know that their truck is male, I guess. And so like a big bull or a big bad dog, you put truck nuts on the trailer hitch of your pickup truck or whatever you got. I've seen them on Ford Expeditions too. I don't know why. Those look more like, maybe like a pregnant Rottweiler than the mean, lean fighting machines that you might want to put truck nuts on. But okay, people do it. They think of their cars that way, fine. And you put them on there, and balls. So that's a funny joke. And trucks don't have balls, and yet this one does. And so it's ironical, you see. I'm very smart. So anyway, somebody has developed what they're calling the TAC, as in tactical, TAC sack. Get it? Because that's what balls are in. Okay, so anyway, what are they? Well, for truck nuts, of course, I think I've seen them. They're chromed because everyone loves chrome on the trailer hitches, and so I guess they may have them in different colors for all I know. Who cares? Anyway, AR-15s are among that class of rifles very frequently referred to by gun enthusiasts as black rifles or black guns. And that's, I guess there's supposed to be some sort of tactical advantage to having them be that flat black matte color. Maybe if you're sneaking around in the dark being a super ninja, that might help you. I've also seen them in camouflage too, of course. Anyway, so for black guns, what color tack sack are you likely to have? Black. Okay, fair enough. So they're black plastic molded testicles that you put on your gun because, evocative of truck nuts. And if you've got a truck with truck nuts, you've probably got an AR-15, and your AR-15 should have AR-15 nuts too, and we'll call it a tack sack. Available at Walgreens. Get yours in time for Christmas. I don't know if Walgreens sells them. I don't know why they wouldn't sell them, but there you have it. So for the guy who has everything, a big giant black ball sack, of course, to be placed on your on your AR-15, where it fits on your AR-15 in the place of the tactical front grip. So that means, of course, every time you're out having fun, manly fun, and I mean this, shooting your AR-15, the thing you're going to want to do is firmly grip a giant ball sack with your forward hand the whole time. I don't know. Of course, if you're drawing your rifle up to your face to be a super sniper, you're going to have those things sort of, dangling in front of your face, in front of your mouth, basically, about mouth level. And you'll find no problem with that, of course, because of how secure you are in your sexuality. And that's why you're out there firing the AR-15 in the first place, for no particular reason, isn't it? So I find this to be an excellent development. I like that people are letting loose with this stuff. There's really no reason to keep this inside. Besides which, if somebody makes fun of you for your strange predilection for plastic balls for whatever reason, shoot them, I guess. Nobody's going to give you guff. You got an AR-15. I find that liberating. That's terrific. And you should get in touch with yourselves, I think. And why the hell not? Get in touch with yourself right at the same time when you get in touch with the tack sack. I can see no problem with it. I think it's a little unusual, and I don't know whether... And here's the question. Do women get interested in that? They've been working so hard to make firearms products appeal to the ladies, since they are underrepresented among gun enthusiasts, and they, of course, have been making pink guns and pink AR-15s. Does the tack sack appeal, or does it not? I guess write us and let us know here at the station. And I don't know. I thought that was an odd product, and I don't know whether it misreads the market or not. And if not, why not? I'm not certain what it reveals. I'm not certain if it's a bad thing that it reveals, a good thing that it reveals. My guess is, though, that a significant portion of the AR-15 accessories market is a little homophobic. And I question how many tack sacks they'll be able to sell. But that's not my problem. Trump can help you make tack sacks great again, I guess. And maybe they should be red. Although, what is that? I don't know. All right. Well, okay. Look, the point is, I've misunderstood the crowd, I guess. If this becomes a bestseller, I don't know. I'd never have told you that singing fish, Big Mouth Billy Bass, would have sold a single goddamn unit. But people love fishing, and for some reason, they think it's funny that a fish sings about going to the river, and that's hilarious. And people bought Snuggies, and people bought Bumpits, and I don't know what to tell you. So you never know. I'll be curious to know how many units of that they sell, and what guys down at the gun club and gun range think about it, and I would be curious to know if the initial reaction is, ha ha, I got to get me some of them, or what balls? No, I'm not going to put balls on my gun. And I don't know. I just it'll be a fascinating dynamic to see whether they can come to grips with it. No pun intended. Okay. So, looks like people are enjoying the segment. Anyway, Mad Hatter, Elron D50, if you're looking for him on Twitter, just thinks the tax act is hilarious. Rebecca Romans, so that asks us out, says, so that's what truck nuts are. I thought they were a snack like beer nuts or corn nuts. Well, they certainly can be. The chrome ones are difficult they're hard on the teeth. If you got weak enamel, you're going to want to stay away from them. It's also something you may want to do in private. But that's what truck nuts are. You haven't seen them then. You've just heard about them. You live in the right area if you haven't seen them. More popular in my area were the propellers. Did you ever see those? There's sort of the trailer hitch covers that were shaped like propellers. That was so funny because the joke being the big car is like a boat, and so it's got a propeller. I don't know. It's weird. People put weird things on their car. I never got into that. I don't have a car quite that big, so it wouldn't work. It's not funny on a minivan. Minivans around here tend to have interestingly, they have golf balls and softballs. I think I've actually even mentioned this in the past, that they have those decals, 3D decals that you put on the window so it's meant to look like a golf ball has embedded itself in your windshield, you're not allowed to put them on your windshield, but in the back window of your car. And then they started selling them for other sports, and I've seen softball is enormously popular around here. We have traveling softball teams for the girls. They and have an enormous sports complex here, so they host a lot of tournaments. And so any given weekend in the spring and fall, and at least one time over the summer, the local area is congested with gigantic SUVs from out of state with their windows marked up, soaped up. We used to have to use soap for that, but now you have special pens for that. Writing the name of your kid, Haley, with 7 E's, number 12, Go Sparkles. And they take every available hotel room. And you can't get anything to eat for breakfast, and you got to wait in line for coffee. There you go. Because half the state of Ohio is here for a softball tournament. That just happened again very recently. And these guys have those decals with a softball going through the windshield, which I don't think you can do. But it's at least more plausible than the kids who played soccer and football. The parents said, I feel excluded by this. I need a decal that looks like my son or daughter's sports ball is going through a window. And they made ones with footballs and soccer balls, but not full size because that's too huge. You wouldn't be able to see around it. So they have miniature footballs and miniature soccer balls in a giant smashed window thing that you put on there. And I know you can't throw a football through a windshield. I've tried, and you can't do it, and certainly not a mini one either. But, if you can put that on your car, then you can put balls on your gun. And really, honestly, if you just want to go right to the balls on the gun, I'm not going to argue with you. And if I did, I guess you'd shoot me. So here endeth the lesson on what else you can attach to your gun to make it look even more phallic. And after that, you're on your own. You're going to have to find out what else you can do with your life. Okay, didn't mean to spend that much time on it, but it is a little bit funny. All right, other things that deserve attention. Really, the big topic of the day is everybody's talking about this Bloomberg piece that Greg introduced you to. That is Joshua Green and Sasha Eisenberg in Bloomberg Business Week, inside the Trump bunker with 12 days to go. And it's an enormous piece. It's not that huge, really, and we probably could read through it, but I highly recommend everybody take a look at it, and we should probably digest a little bit more what we're talking about when they were talking about dark posts. I mean, I think that's a very interesting area for exploration, not just because it has to do with voter suppression, but just interesting enough. I mean, it was not initially clear what the hell they were talking about. What good would a Facebook post that only some people can see be? And I think the answer is that it's supposed to be shared virally, but that if reporters are just scanning the Trump campaign Facebook page or are told that I got XYZ, probably racist meme from the Trump Facebook page, and then they go looking for it, they will look in vain and not be able to verify its existence, and therefore be hesitant to publish it, and election day will come and go without them having been tarred by having circulated racist memes. I mean, they already have done that, so I guess in that sense it's too late. But anyway, I think the key subject here is taken up by Mark Sumner, writing over at Daily Kos under this headline: Trump campaign, and it's the grammatical punctuation, it's not a new product for your AR-15. Trump campaign, we have 3 major voter suppression operations underway. That's not something you normally want to admit to. Sick of this election? Mark asks. That's just what Donald Trump wants. With the days ticking down to a precious few, the Trump campaign is making use of every moment to drive their strategy home. But it's not a traditional get-out-the-vote effort. In fact, his team isn't really interested in bringing voters to the polls. And this, of course, refers back and quotes from the Business Week article earlier mentioned. Back in May, newly anointed, he told Bloomberg Businessweek, and I think we're talking here about, I'm not even sure. Who is it, Bannon, or are we talking about, there's this other guy who looks, by the way, like everybody I've ever written about in Gunfail. He's got an interesting look going on. What's this guy's name again? Parscale? I don't know how you pronounce it. Brad, so it makes me think it might be Parscale. Otherwise, I would say Parscale. Parscale. A San Antonio marketing entrepreneur. Questions about that, but okay. Anyway, he may be the subject of this. He was the subject of the lead of the Business Week article, so I'm not sure who the he is. Back in May, newly anointed, he told Bloomberg Businessweek he would harness, quote, the movement to challenge Clinton in states Republicans haven't carried in years. Or maybe that's even Trump. There we go, because I'm looking at the rest of the quote. I could see it's probably Trump. He would challenge Clinton in states Republicans hadn't carried in years. New York, New Jersey, Oregon, Connecticut, California. I'm going to do phenomenally, he predicted. Yet neither Trump's campaign nor the RNC has prioritized registering and mobilizing the 47 million eligible white voters without college degrees who are Trump's most obvious source of new votes. Okay? Instead, Trump's campaign, and Trump's own words, are driving an opposite strategy, says Mark, a keep the voters disgusted strategy, a keep away the vote movement. Instead of expanding the electorate, Bannon, Steve Bannon, formerly of Breitbart, and really still of Breitbart, but now working out of Trump Tower, I guess, Bannon and his team are trying to shrink it. We have 3 major voter suppression operations underway, says a senior official, because that's super American. That strategy has 2 big tent poles, sexism, and racism. The Trump campaign is specifically targeting groups they feel lean toward Clinton, and they're making sure that the news is kept full of information that discourages those groups of voters. They're not huge news consumers necessarily, but okay, whatever. Why does Trump continually bring up the Trans-Pacific Partnership, even though Hillary disavowed the deal months ago? Because he wants to keep Sanders voters thinking that Clinton will betray them. Why does Trump trot out Bill Clinton's parade of accusers? Not to counter the charges against him, but in hopes that young women will be disgusted enough to just sit the election out. Bringing up the 2 decades-old speech in which Hillary mentioned the concept of super predators, that's designed to make African Americans stay home. Trump's team is pushing particularly hard on that front. And here again, a quote from the Bloomberg piece. On October 24th, Trump's team began placing spots on select African American radio stations, just like Greg told you. In San Antonio, a young staffer showed off a South Park-style animation he'd created, right, of Clinton delivering the Super Predator line. as cartoon text popped up around her. Hillary Clinton thinks African Americans are super predators. The animation will be delivered to certain African American voters through Facebook dark posts. Again, non-public posts whose viewership the campaign controls, so that, as Parscale puts it, only the people we want to see it, see it. It's hidden from everybody else. I will reiterate. The aim is to depress Clinton's vote total because we've modeled this, says the official. It will dramatically affect her ability to turn these people out. That's entirely possible, and that statement, I think, is meant to lead you to believe that there are people in the Trump campaign who know what modeling is and that they can do it. They know that the news media reporting this know that the Clinton campaign actually has people who can build such models and run them and get a scientific-ish, at least, result from them. But of course they know, it's not a crystal ball. It doesn't tell you exactly what's going to happen. But the better the model, the closer you will be to reality. But I think what might be going on over on the Trump side is they may very well just be saying, whatever crap you make up, be sure to call it a model and say you've been modeling it so that your predictions are not dismissed outright. But maybe they have some model capable people. Usually what they're thinking over there about when it comes to models is the other stories we've been telling about the Trump world over the last couple of days. Anyway, Mark concludes here, the Donald Trump campaign is targeting hidden Facebook posts at African Americans because they, quote, know it will depress the vote of, quote, these people. Donald Trump's campaign is negative in every way you can imagine. Well, so what does it mean? Have they got... they still have to have a list of African American voters who are susceptible to this, whose Facebook pages they are aware of, so that they can target them with this. Do they have it? I don't know. We've certainly learned about the size of the database that they're building, but I do question how well the Republican Party data and other data that they have access to or that they've bought up really identifies thought leaders in the African American community. Armando is calling in. I guess he's got something to say about, the dark posting, perhaps? What's up, Armando? Unless it's a pocket dial. Armando, are you there? You are there. You're driving. Let's all listen in to where Armando. This is a terrible invasion of privacy, if you didn't mean to dial us. But it is fascinating. Pocket dialing is endlessly fascinating. Well, before anything goes really and truly wrong or something gets said on the air that we can't control, I guess we'll cut this one off. He's back. Okay, let's see. Armando, are you there? Are you just doing this over and over? This is crazy. This is a phone jamming operation. Or do you not hear me? How would I rate this call? I'm being asked. Excellent, perfect, clear, no problems. He didn't hear me. I don't know. I'll let him rate the call. We'll just cancel on that one. Okay. Well, you can call me back if you are listening to the show and figure out that you were dialing. You're certainly welcome to add what you've got. Let me follow that one up with this story. I heard about this as events were unfolding. Did we mention this one yesterday? That over the weekend we were once again on Twitter, many of us sort of amused by the sight, now familiar, of seeing a Trump rally. I think they've all been in Florida where this has happened, but I'm not positive of it, where people appear behind the candidate himself holding up Blacks for Trump signs. Very often those holding the signs are white. And very clearly, although you never can tell for sure exactly, and my goodness, I don't want to jump to any conclusions here, but I'm pretty sure that the people holding them were white. I am willing to make that mistake, and I'll apologize if they come out and say, yeah, I'm just very light-skinned and, you're racist. Okay, well, we'll see about that. Anyway, I I didn't think that was terribly, I mean, there's nothing sinister about it, although the implication was that Trump couldn't even really draw enough actual black supporters to get the few Blacks for Trump signs that were there held by actual black people. But what was probably happening, of course, was that actual black people who are actual black people for Trump, although why they say blacks for Trump, that's just this very sensitive construction. Bothers me, but if it does bother you, go ahead. Blacks for Trump were showing up and I'm sure being very friendly to the people in the crowd and saying, hey, you want to hold one of our signs? If you don't have a sign, you can hold it up. They may have initially said, but I'm not black. And to which they probably would say, that's okay. What are you really doing? You're showing support for, you're acknowledging that there are blacks for Trump and they're a very important group. And we want to show black people in America that it's not taboo to support Donald Trump. And we were in a good position to get this sign on the air. Most people won't even see you anyway, but even if they do, so what? So you're supporting your black friends who are out here as blacks for Trump. And that's fine. Why not? Go for it. It's a little bit weird, but it's fine. I did see someone compare it. Was it Rob George? I think so. Trying to compare it to, and he did say the comparison's not really the same, but, white people go to Black Lives Matter, events all the time and carry signs that say Black Lives Matter just the same. And they're white, and how come we don't have a problem with that? And the answer is because it's not only not a perfect analogy, it's a horrible comparison. One sign says, well, the one that says Black Lives Matter. I mean, do they? If they do, then it's kind of okay for any color person to say so. I think you don't have to be black to think Black Lives Matter, right? But in order to be a black, that's so bad, a black person for Trump, you got to be black. I mean, unless the argument is, unless you're really trying to say that the person said, I will hold this sign to acknowledge the fact that blacks for Trump exist, and I like them, and in solidarity, I'm helping hold their sign. Yeah, I mean, certainly nothing wrong with a friendly guy asking somebody next to him, hey, you want to hold one of these signs? And the person next to them saying, yeah, sure. I mean, I support that you're here. I'm helping you out. You're an oppressed minority or whatever. I don't know what the hell the guy is thinking, lady is thinking. So I'll hold the sign. But, the messaging is wrong, and the person, the voice in which it's said is wrong. Black Lives Matter is something that can be said by anyone. Blacks for Trump says I'm the person holding the sign is one, and they're not, and it would be, but although it would be kind of stupid to have am I gonna stand there with a sign that says there are blacks for Trump? Is just none of them here, or you can't see them in the shot, or the guy next to me is a black for Trump. So fine. The message hasn't been tailored correctly. But it's a very different kind of declaration. The Blacks for Trump sign is supposed to declare that there are blacks for Trump and that they're here. And if the person who's holding the sign isn't one, and there isn't one visible in the shot, then that doesn't look so good. And even if there is one visible in the shot, then you say, well, you brought two signs and you only could muster one black guy. Well, of course, the reality behind those signs is more complex. First of all, there is the perfectly excusable nice black guy shows up and thinks it would be a wise thing to show that there's black support for Trump. And yeah, there's not a lot. So he has some friends that he meets there, or strangers that he meets there, and just says, want to hold a sign? Sure, you'll get on TV. Go ahead. Okay. Then, of course, there's another level to this. Maybe a more serious level. Who is showing up with blacks for Trump sign? Are the campaign... sometimes the campaign will bring a bunch of things. Women for Trump, blacks for Trump, whatever. And then not just Trump campaign, all campaigns. And they see those people that correspond, and they give them the sign and say, hold that up. The message being on TV, people won't be able to, they don't know who you are. But if you're holding up a thing that says blacks for Trump, people say, oh my gosh, look at that. Holy crap, that guy is black and he's there for Trump. So there must be blacks for Trump. Women for Trump? Look, there's one now. That's the idea. But in this case, these guys actually brought their own signs. And of course, because they know there's going to be high visibility. It doesn't just say Blacks for Trump. It also, in many cases, although sometimes I see that this has been taped over by wise advanced people. The very few number of actual advanced people that are on the Trump campaign will cover it up. They put their website. The group puts its website on there because they know that's chiefly why they're there, to wave the sign on TV and get people to go to the website. So people have done that. Salon Magazine did it. Brendan Gauthier has done so. I saw plenty of people on the day of the event tweeting at me who this guy was because they too went to the website. But here it's written up in extended form and it's linkable and I can give it to you and you can share it and read it on your own. That Blacks for Trump guy at Donald Trump's rallies, it is just chiefly one guy, is even weirder than you think. Meet Michael the Black Man. That is a weird name to go by. Former member of a black supremacist group turned over-enthusiastic Trump supporter. How? I don't know. He's crazy. That's how. There's no real explanation for it. But I thought you might want to have the background on the guy. For good reason. Social media was buzzing about a white woman holding a Blacks for Trump sign at Donald Trump's rally in Sanford, Florida on Tuesday. I was buzzing about the fact that 10 days earlier, the same thing happened also in Florida, a white woman holding a Blacks for Trump sign. This happens with some frequency, is all I was saying. Unfortunately, the newsworthiness of the contradiction overshadowed the fact that the woman was with a multiracial group of people wearing matching shirts that read, "Trump and Republicans are not racist." At the bottom of the shirts was printed, Gods 2, like the number 2, gods2.com. And it's on the signs too, but sometimes that website gets covered up on the sign. Gods2.com redirects to the personal website of Michael the Black Man, formerly known as Maurice Woodside, and also known as Michael Simonette, Simonette. Once a prominent member of the Nation of Yahweh, which, if you're Jewish, you're not supposed to say out loud. The name of God, the Nation of Yahweh. There are people who have no difficulty with that. A violent black supremacist group prominent in Miami in the 1980s. What? Yeah. According to the Miami New Times, Michael, quote, was accused of 2 gruesome Yahweh murders in the 1990s and has since been charged with, but never convicted of, 4 other felonies while starting his own bizarre religious enterprise. Now, some of you may object, all religious enterprises are bizarre. Okay, we understand it. How so? In this case, Michael has since reinvented himself as a musician, which is presumably less bizarre. According to the New Times, almost said it was the New York Times, which described him as an anti-gay, anti-liberal preacher with a golden instinct for getting on TV at GOP events. Well, he's done well here. During the 2012 Republican primary race, Rick Santorum invited Michael to open his campaign rally in Coral Springs, Florida. Why? Not because of any remarkable achievements. This is all my own commentary here, but not because of some remarkable achievement on his part recognized by Rick Santorum. But of course, Rick Santorum needed blah people to open his campaign rally because it was otherwise all white, and he had probably came just after he did the blah people line and caught himself before he got to say black people and wanted to do something to rehabilitate his image with black people. It wasn't going to work, but this is what he chose. Here's a guy who comes to Republican events and he's black. I'll have him open the rally. What started out as an unlistenable jazz set devolved into an unhinged rant in which Michael called the Democrats Nazis. The Democrats, they're the worst thing that's ever happened to the black man, Michael told the crowd. They're the slave masters. Whoops, Rick Santorum didn't vet his guy. Or maybe he did, and he didn't mind that line so much. But he probably wasn't looking for the unlistenable jazz. So, more background. The Nation of Yahweh lost momentum after its founder, Yahweh ben Yahweh, which, by the way, should be understood to mean Yahweh being the name of God, basically saying, and Ben in Hebrew meaning son of. We were talking about a guy who has named himself God, son of God. So, maybe Christians don't like that either. But anyway, Yahweh ben Yahweh, who was born Hulan Mitchell Jr., was imprisoned in 1990 on 18 counts of conspiracy related to 14 murders, 2 attempted murders, extortion, and arson. He was released in 2001 and died of prostate cancer in 2007. So he scheduled it very well there. That's good. He broke it up. There was a decent interval. It's just weird the way they put that. Released in 2001, died in 2007. Okay. Former NFL player Robert Rozier found Yahweh in 1982 after he was released by the St. Louis Cardinals. I had no idea Yahweh was released by the St. Louis Cardinals. Punctuation, please. All right. Well, sentence structure, really. In 1985, of course, they're talking about Robert Rozier being released from the Cardinals in 82. In 85, he joined the Brotherhood, or the Brotherhood, the capital B Brotherhood, which is a more exclusive group within the Nation of Yahweh that allegedly required aspiring members to kill a white person as part of its initiation ceremony. Don't know if it's true. Terrible initiation ceremony. Just so dull. Oh my God. Have you ever sat through one of those ceremonies? But more to the point, it's terrible to have to kill white people to get to that initiation ceremony. It's really, the ceremony is something entirely different, you see. This is sort of well, okay. You get the idea. Do you think anybody knew anything about that? I doubt it. He's a black guy. Yay. Let's have him at our thing. Oh, mass murder? Well, whatever. Rozier described his role in the cult as a death angel during Yahweh ben Yahweh's 1992 trial, in which Rozier was the star witness. We did everything from driving a bus to killing someone if necessary. That really is everything. Rozier testified, beating, hanging, burning, stoning, decapitation. Decapitation, that's ISIS. Sharia. Oh my God, there's a Sharia ISIS terrorist holding a sign behind Donald Trump and on stage with, what's his face, Santorum. But hey, it's a different guy. In recent years, a smaller number of followers have tried to breathe new life into the movement, because why wouldn't you want to breathe life into that movement, right? Michael, meanwhile, continues to post on his website, which declares devotion to Yahweh, although it's unclear whether he means Yahweh God or Yahweh ben Yahweh, the guy who died of prostate cancer, in the header. I assume Mr. Yahweh, the late Mr. Yahweh. It declares devotion to him, as well as it also links to his YouTube and Facebook pages. His posts include long-winded essays and video diatribes comparing Hillary Clinton to the biblical whore of Babylon, and or explaining why she will start World War III. He also attends his fair share of Trump campaign events, and here's pictures of him next to the original white lady in the USA top hat over there that I saw the first time. But there's at least 2 black appearing members of the group holding the signs. But yeah, they do tend to find prominent place for themselves. So here are a couple of embedded tweets showing them, 1 at Trump rally and 2 just standing around somewhere. And 3 with some people also holding Trump Pence signs, etc. So no shortage of pictures of them doing it. But there you go. That's really, well, that sort of ends on a bit of a clunker there. But how do you like that? Murder, possibly, involved in all this? You know, it doesn't say that he himself did them, although it does say he was suspected of at least 2 of them. But the thing is, now he's a musician, so it's okay. Just thought I'd throw that out there so you had a little bit of background on that bit of weirdness. Let's see. There's another thing. Here's something that requires, I think, more time digesting off air, and then, of course, more time perhaps parsing it. But part of the reason that I think that the Clinton Foundation found itself back in the news, or at least back in the consciousness of Joe Scarborough and Miko Brzezinski, has got to be the Washington Post's piece inside Bill Clinton Inc., like Incorporated. Yet another hacked email has revealed a hacked memo, which itself reveals the intersection of charity and personal income. And this thing, as far as I can tell, seems to revolve chiefly around a guy by the name of Doug Band, who long story short, used to be very close to and very integral to Bill Clinton's operations with respect both to the Clinton Foundation and Bill Clinton's own personal business operations revolving around his making paid speeches and other appearances either at corporate functions or whatever else, wherever he gave speeches. Corporate ones are the ones that got the most attention because it just feels so dirty to say he gave some kind of paid corporate speech, but also, to think tanks and gatherings of intellectuals. And, we remember how Clinton operated. He loved those Renaissance weekends, and I'm sure things like Aspen Ideals Festival are very appealing to him. He loves going to those things and talking and hearing himself do it, and he must love getting paid for it too. And there's a legitimate concern in all this. And what's most interesting, I think, about the hacked memo is, one, it reveals that Doug Band very purposely pursued a weird overlap, a really just unseemly overlap between his two roles that he took on. One was dealing with the Clinton Foundation and helping the Clinton Foundation raise money, very often from corporate donors, to do its work. Which, look, you've probably mulled this over in your own mind. There's a very, there's a weird split, and people will have mixed feelings about doing good works with an international charity. And there are certainly people who also have brought up a number of examples where they say maybe the good works, they might have had their heart in the right place, but they weren't well done. And they might have, it turns out, it might have been poorly done in service of some other agenda, not to do bad things to people. But we're talking here chiefly about Haitian storm and earthquake relief, wherein the temporary housing that was brought down there by the Clinton Foundation turns out to have been real crap, and in some cases perhaps even detrimental to the health of the people that were housed in it, right along the lines of the trailers that were used post-Katrina here in the United States that were off-gassing formaldehyde byproducts because they were, in some cases, the very same types of trailers. And one might just very perfectly well question, what does the Clinton Foundation, why did they buy those? And if the answer is because the people who manufacture those horrible trailers gave the Clinton Foundation lots of money, then that leads you to one of two possible conclusions. Either they weren't paying any attention, that's one possible conclusion, or another possible conclusion, I guess there's several, would be, oh my gosh, they took money from people whose trailers they knew were poisonous and flipped the favor back to them by purchasing those trailers, even though they knew they were poisonous, and gave them to Haitian people because they wanted to poison the Haitians. I have my doubts about whether that's true. Let's say, in fact, I pretty much reject that one out of hand. That doesn't seem to fit with anything. But it's certainly possible that, the manufacturer, because, look, if you manufacture housing, even if it's crap, that you can sell to contractors as emergency relief housing, part of your agenda is going to be giving out some of your money to people that do emergency relief work all the time. And then hoping that people won't vet you very well. So it's entirely possible that money flowed in and vetting that should have been done wasn't done. And then when they got the idea that they should be involved in housing relief, they said, who do we know in housing relief? And they checked their Rolodex and boom, there's one. Good. Let's buy up some of their product. And it works. That's not good. Anyway, Douglas Band appears to be the guy who both helped raise corporate money for the Clinton Foundation and helped book Bill Clinton. He was a booking agent, essentially, and he would get him paid speaking gigs that were ostensibly not related to the Clinton Foundation, but one, it's problematic to have the same person doing both things. There's no way to really firewall the two. You can make an attempt at doing it, and some people will be better at doing it than others, but it would just be better if two people in entirely different places were handling those two things, because it creates a weird opportunity for improprieties. The other thing that's interesting about the Doug Band memo is that it appears that Chelsea Clinton and maybe other members of the Clinton family realized this and said, this is actually bad and creates the appearance of impropriety, or at least the opportunity for impropriety. And we think that these roles should be separated and that maybe Doug Band shouldn't handle both of these things. And what makes this particular hack most salacious is that Doug Band pushes back on this. I guess in emailing to John Podesta, he says essentially that Chelsea Clinton is a spoiled brat for bringing this up, and she doesn't know what the hell's going on, and I'm awesome, and nobody can do what I do the way I do it. And that's kind of not good for anybody's brand in all this. But although it doesn't really, in my book, implicate anybody but Band in this, but I guess it implicates the Clintons who let it happen for as long as it did. Credit then to Chelsea for pointing out this should no longer happen. And in fact, it doesn't any longer happen. But I guess the email that accompanied the memo appears to be mostly Doug Band complaining that business that was lucrative to him is going down the toilet thanks to this spoiled brat. Anyway, I just thought I should make you at least aware of it. I would like to spend perhaps some more time reading through the article about it. And for the rest of the thing, I just want to throw in, it's interesting that they used Bill Clinton Incorporated in this, because again, speaking of people who just happen to be coincidentally still in the news, Newt Gingrich, who put himself in the news cycle the other day, is the guy about whom the press originally wrote with the ink appended to his name. Newt Gingrich invented the lifestyle campaign in my book. And they used to say, I mean, here's something that's you don't have to depend on my book for this part. Back in his day, they very often in the press referred to a Newt Incorporated, Newt Inc., as the interlocking network of nonprofits and think tanks and PACs that Newt maintained in order to absorb as much dark and off-the-record money and campaign cash as possible and use it to support his jet-setting politics lifestyle. So it's interesting, and you should never just append the ink to somebody's name like this without also mentioning that Newt kind of invented it. So just as Newt challenged Megyn Kelly to make the overt parallel to Bill Clinton when she was talking about Trump's sexual assault issues, even though there doesn't appear to be much of a parallel there at all. Then I would what's the word? It's not absolve, but I'm the opposite of that. But I would, let's say I would importune the writers of articles about a Bill Clinton Inc. to remember, at the very least, that it was Newt Gingrich, who's working for the other side here, who really invented this interlocking network idea. And it's not even entirely clear that existed on the Clinton side. But it's well worth looking into, and it may, in fact, be demonstrated as we pour through these things, when we can give it some more time, that there were problem areas. Certainly something concerned Chelsea to a great enough extent that she put stuck her neck out on this one, and only to get nicked in private anyway by Doug Band. Very interesting. Okay, so other stories that require attention, and there are many of them. Yesterday, after we read about Paula Patrice and her experience being invited to Trump's apartment, quote-unquote apartment, in Trump Tower, and then having it turn out to be basically just his sex pad, a corporate apartment that he kept. And this is kind of it's interesting. I wonder if this is what he was doing with vacancies there. Instead of admitting that we've got a vacancy and that we've got an apartment on the market. He just used it himself and pretended it wasn't on the market and pretended he was at 100% capacity. I wonder how many of these things he had. But anyway, it led me to think a little bit more about how, once again, Trump Tower, for its outside facade of, being this exclusive building and it's hard to get into, et cetera, et cetera. Well, first of all, significant portions of it are empty. Significant portions of it are non-existent as well. Trump claims that the Trump Tower is 10 stories higher than it actually is. How you deny that kind of objective reality, I don't know, but the excuse is there's no 6th floor through 13th floor, I think, is how it works out mechanically. And so whatever the floors are from above, the number, the 14th floor, I guess, is actually the 6th floor or maybe the 7th floor, depending on how that actually works out. But whatever. And remember, he had to work out that deal in order to be able to build additional stories, build higher than he was zoned for. Anyway, I just found that interesting. And then right after we read it, I came upon 2 stories. I don't know how old they are. 2 stories, one from Curbed, New York. Curbed, I don't know what it is even. Is it a website? Is it a magazine? But I guess it's sort of about, it looks like it's like kind of a real estate magazine. And another piece from Bloomberg, both about the tenants, past and present, of Trump Tower. And I've been telling you, I've been referring to Trump Tower as a billionaire's, frat house / sex club. And I thought I'd fill you in on exactly who these people are and let you know that there are reporters working on this. And both of these pieces are, in fact, current and dated October 25th, after all, and that was just 2 days ago, so other people are on this beat too. The less damning of the two, from Curbed, is called Meet the Notorious Characters Who Call Trump Tower Home, not the least of which is Donald Trump himself. This is Zoe Rosenberg writing in Curbed, New York. New York City's most high-profile residential buildings are often home to some of the wealthiest and shadiest, because that usually goes hand in hand, figures in the world. Take, for instance, the Time Warner Center, where members of the Saudi royal family and known corrupt Russian officials knowingly shack up. Or Walker Tower, where the purchase of a $50.9 million penthouse has been named by the U.S. government. The purchase, I guess, been named by the U.S. government in connection to an international money laundering scheme. Gee whiz, money laundering through real estate. Who ever heard of that? It should come as no surprise that Trump Tower is no exception. Bloomberg has compiled an extensive and rather epic list of the building's past and present occupants, and we'll go to that next, shedding light on the international cast of characters who traverse the building's gilded halls. Everything's gilded there, of course. At that, following is a list of a handful of Trump Tower's current residents, who include an embattled former sports administrator who pled guilty to a crime connected to the FIFA scandal. And we've discussed that on the show, haven't we? And Trump's former campaign manager. That's true. Who are we talking about? Well, chiefly, of course, Donald Trump himself, who occupies apparently floors 66 through 68. That's a lot of floors. Of course, the Republican candidate shacks up in the top floors of his namesake tower, hidden behind a grand entryway gilded in golden diamonds. The palatial penthouse, Bloomberg reports, takes a tip from Saudi arms dealer Adnan Khashoggi. One reason Trump's triplex is so vast, he has written, is a trip he took to Khashoggi's condo nearby, where he stepped into a living room bigger than his own. Someone's bigger than Trump. It can't happen. Trump, who has the best temperament, wanted to level up with a Saudi arms dealer. That's reassuring. By the way, before I even continue with this, one part, did you look after the show at the rest of Paula Patrice's story after I had to drop off of it because we were running out of time? But let me, in case you missed it, where did we get to? She goes there. There's like no real stuff there. There's just like corporate furniture and a refrigerator full of champagne. And then she just gets grabbed and he starts kissing her. And He's like, no, could we at least pretend to have dinner? You invited me for dinner and I'd like to eat something. But she takes off saying, Donald Trump's for a dime a dozen. It's terrible, but that, in those days, that's the way guys behaved. You remember all of that. And that's what Trump did. And he went around the clubs like the country club and the China club and, hooked up with girls there all the time. Let's see, did we leave this off here? We got around to, let's see. Oh, yes. Well, here we left off just before we got to this. The news that Paula and Trump had been an item was untrue, Paula said. Apparently that made the gossip columns. She thinks it probably started with Billy Wild Bill Stanton, then head of VIP at the China Club, and these days a private eye who seems to have found the fame he desired, appearing as a security expert on network television. Stanton returned the writer's request for comment here and offered to discuss gun rights, specifically concealed carry on college campuses. I could have talked about that with him, but declined to answer or even hear questions about what Paula described as his facilitation of the social networking in the New York City nightlife scene. This is actually really, I don't feel like I've switched stories here, and you shouldn't either, because a lot of this social networking goes on inside Trump Tower. It's actually kind of a feature of living there. Like young models, you get one free with the purchase of a condo. And we have a vigorous trade-in, trade-up program that you can use here. Let me get to the rest of this article. You'll see what I'm talking about, or it'll be hinted at in this article anyway. While any romance thus far had been purely an invention by the press and club promoters, which is a weird sector of the economy to begin with, before long the future presidential candidate actually came calling. Trump did call me several times and invited me to take his helicopter to Atlantic City, Paul said, and you'll recall that David K. Johnston has documented that he bought that helicopter from a massive cocaine trafficker who was a good friend of his and who I think one of the other articles will remind us lived in the building. Like I said, these should all be considered one big article here, these three pieces. Paula says, so he invited me to take his helicopter to Atlantic City. I was living in a rat hole with a roommate and partying my butt off. I could have cared less about getting in a helicopter, though. And to be alone, I don't put myself in these situations. I'm not getting in a helicopter to fly to another city with a man I don't know. How would I get home? But then he invited me to Trump Tower and said we'd go out and have dinner. Paula didn't get dinner that night. She left Trump Tower and thought little of it until she got a call months later inviting her to another dinner party. Again, with the dinners, these guys. They're lying about the dinners. But, okay, so she was a tough cookie, right? He does this to her. It's wrong. It's awful. It's much an assault. The fact that she doesn't give a damn about it doesn't make it any less of an assault, but thank God she's not letting it bother her. Except for the fact that it only doesn't bother her because she's like, this is what New York City nightlife is like, which is a horrible thing to have to deal with. Anyway, Trump invites her to Trump Tower, tries to start kissing her, gives her a glass of champagne. She's like, I'm hungry. I want the dinner. He says, forget it. She walks, right? She doesn't think anything about it until she gets a call months later inviting her to a dinner party again, right? Who's inviting her? Adnan Khashoggi. What? Khashoggi, a Saudi arms dealer who was briefly known as the richest man in the world, was hosting a small get-together for Saudi Prince Khalid bin Sultan. Donald had handed me off, Paula said. That's what we're getting at here. You try to get with her. It doesn't work out. Whatever. You drop it. You're not going to be vindictive about it. You don't have to stalk her. There's a million models in the city. But here's the deal. You run into Adnan Khashoggi and you're jealous that his living room is bigger than yours, but you're making small talk. And he says, hey, I need some dates for the Saudi prince and his friends who are coming. Do you know anybody? And he says, yeah. Basically, I'm sure in his mind, he's like, I know this girl. She, whatever. Now, I don't know whether, so what else is going on here? Is he honestly saying, well, she's beautiful, so you'll enjoy her, so terrific, which is disgusting enough in its own right? Or is he being underhanded and saying, I'm going to hand Khashoggi this girl who won't put out? In his mind, that's the bigger crime. I'll show him who's got the bigger living room. I don't know which one's more disgusting. I think Yes, I do. Anyway, according to newspaper reports at the time, Khashoggi and Trump were friends. They went to parties together and hung out in Aspen together over the holidays. Oh, Aspen. Gosh, everything is the same goddamn storyline. Did you see? All right, quick aside. Yesterday, I retweeted something. Somebody found a clip. Aspen, skiing in Aspen is someplace that he took, well, eventually took his first two wives. Maybe Melania has gone too. He went skiing, I think, in Aspen with Ivana early on in their marriage or early on in their dating, apparently. And it turns out Ivana is an accomplished skier, and Donald thought she's a dumb blonde from, Eastern Europe. She doesn't know anything about it. I'll impress her, bring her to the ski slopes, show her what a great skier I am. And apparently he heads down the hill. Come on, baby, he says. This clip, I'll find the clip. I'll share it with you. I'll retweet it again. I'll put it in the roundup. And then apparently Ivana then skis down the hill, but like beautifully, expertly, and she's jumping and flipping and pulling all kinds of stunts. And she says, and maybe this was in the divorce proceedings or something, it steamed Donald so bad he felt humiliated because it turns out she was a better skier than he was, and he took off the skis and left the slopes and stormed off. He couldn't take it, she says, that the woman might be a better skier than him. That, I think, is very interesting and revealing. It's also, of course, interesting and revealing that he later brings Marla Maples, who he's cheating with, to Aspen while Ivana is there. Just to, I'll get you back for embarrassing me on this very ski slope in Aspen. Please, nuclear button immediately for this man. Back to this story, though. Khashoggi and Trump are friends. They partied, they hung out in Aspen together over the holidays, and Trump bought what was then the world's longest private yacht from Khashoggi for $30 million, called it the Trump Princess, as I recall, just like the Love Boat. Khashoggi and Trump also shared the title of America's cheapest zillionaire, bestowed by Spy magazine, remember them? Which had mailed checks for 13 cents to New York's well-known, well-heeled, finding only Trump and Khashoggi cashed them. Khashoggi was present at Mar-a-Lago parties where Trump brought models in by the busload. I feel like I'm reading you the same article over and over again. And he attended Trump's wedding to Maples in 1993. Paula accepted the invitation and spent the evening with Khashoggi, Al-Walid, Trump, Maples, and a dozen other guests in the duplex 18,000-foot luxury apartment in the Olympic Towers, where Khashoggi lives. I spoke to Trump that night. We were cordial, Paula remembers. I was there for free champagne and a good time, and then I was going home. In the years following her brushes with Trump and other rich men like him, Paula actually became a model, gracing the cover of Italian Vogue and staying out of trouble so many aspiring models fell into. I got a legit place after jumping through a bunch of rich men hoops, she said. Good for you. As for Trump, the worst she'll say about the man who asked her on a date and then shoved his tongue down her throat is what she told her mom after the trip to Trump Tower 25 years ago. I told her he's a jerk. And to use that language with my mother was strong. He's just so handsy. During that time, there were so many men like Trump. If they could get it, they were going to. And if they were allowed to behave a certain way, they could. Because they cannot police themselves. It's one thing when it's Trump, the millionaire from New York City. It's another when you're talking about the presidency of the United States. So that's why she speaks up now. And by the way, there were so many men like Trump. If they could get it, they were going to. If they were allowed to behave a certain way, they would. Trump Tower and other Trump buildings became safe spaces for them where they could. That was the design. That's Trump world. That's why it was a sex cult. The millionaires and billionaires who wanted to have apartments there because outwardly it looked like they were buying into an exclusive club. Secretly, they knew they were buying into one-stop date shopping where Trump would bring busloads of models, beauty pageant contestants, etc., and try to get everybody that he could who was interested to hook up with him. And then, when they were done with him, for better or for worse, pass him on to the next guy. Preferably, probably, with a little bit of notes rating her best skills. Probably. I don't know. It doesn't say that anywhere. But, that's the kind of thing that goes on. So, back to the other version of the same goddamn story over and over again from Curbed New York, which tells us about who's living currently, anyway, in Trump Tower, along with Donald Trump, who's got the giant condo because Adnan Khashoggi. Remember? That's where we left off. Who else is there? Guido Lombardi, floors 62 and 63. That's real estate investor Guido Lombardi, the self-proclaimed Italian count, Trump supporter, and sympathizer with Italy's anti-immigrant Northern League Party. What do you know? More fascists. Gee, that's weird. Heli Namad, floor 51. And when we're talking about them, these things, we're often talking about the entirety of floor 51. He's an art dealer. Hillel Namad of the Namad collecting dynasty has been snatching up apartments on the 51st floor of Trump Tower since at least 1999, when he paid $2.5 million for Unit 51J. Years and millions later, Namad amassed the entire floor for a total of $18.4 million worth of space. Namad was, because he's just a regular guy who likes big apartments, sent to prison for 5 months in 2014 for running a high-stakes gambling ring. I've told you about it before. Related, the massive Panama Papers leak from earlier this year identified Namad's father, David, as the owner of a Modigliani that the grandson of a Jewish art dealer claims was snatched from his grandparents' shop in Paris during the Nazi occupation. Just a nice touch. Ernie Garcia, floors 48 through 49. This is the chairman of a used car dealership. Drive Time? Okay, used cars, not the most honorable profession in the world, but he pled guilty to bank fraud in 1990 in connection to the collapse of Charles Keating's savings and loan. Garcia was sentenced to probation and currently takes up residence in the tower. Who's on floor 43? Paul Manafort. Still there. Is he managing the campaign anymore? No. Live in Trump Tower? Yeah. Why? Wouldn't you want to leave? I don't know. Sex club? Maybe I want to stay. Trump's former campaign manager, who resigned in August, has lived in Trump Tower since 2006. Manafort transferred the apartment from an LLC to his name in 2015. Weird. All people do that, though, right? Jose Maria Marin on floor 41. If one must serve house arrest, his profile begins. Trump Tower is not too shabby of a place to do it. That's the case with Jose Maria Marin, a former administrator of the Brazilian Football Confederation, who's serving a sentence in connection with bribery charges stemming from the FIFA crisis, to which he pled guilty. Floor 32, Susetta Mion. Ivana Trump's pal Susetta, of the Italian fashion family of Mions, M-I-O-N, has been shacked up in a Trump Tower pad after allegedly looting her mother's bank accounts and possessions and carting it all across the Atlantic in 2007. Weird. In an interview with Bloomberg, Mion called the issue a family quarrel that's being resolved. Okay. Juan Beckman Vidal, floor 31. Vidal's name is not as well known as the liquor brand he controls, Jose Cuervo. The tequila bigwig owns 3 apartments in the building. Well, there's more, of course, and they just cut it off there and say, for a list of the colorful characters who purchased in the building formerly, including, let's say, Andrew Lloyd Webber, who's, I guess he's okay, right? Oh, also Haitian dictator baby Doc Duvalier. Then head on over to the Bloomberg article, and why not? Maybe we'll take a look at that before wrapping things up. It is getting towards the end, but this is just fun stuff. Inside Trump Tower, the skyscraper where Trump is already king, writes Bloomberg. This by Max Abelson, Jesse Drucker, and Zachary R. Mider, M-I-D-E-R. Also dated October 25th. It is pretty interesting, all of this stuff. The past one, the article I just finished with, I guess is still current residents. It is a shame, though, when these inner city housing projects just become riddled with crime and crime figures. And it's just, it's like you need to just bulldoze these things and start over again. You know what I mean? What else have we got here? So Bloomberg provides us with this. If Donald Trump loses next month, he'll come home to a building 11 times bigger than the White House. If he wins, anyone who wonders how the political rookie might lead the U.S. has to look no further than the domain he already rules. Trump Tower on Fifth Avenue is where Trump made his mark in New York, filmed his reality TV show, works at a desk surrounded by pictures of himself, and lives in a marbled triplex penthouse. It's where he launched his presidential campaign and where he retreated after his boasts about grabbing women were leaked. The shiny skyscraper, 10 stories shorter than Trump claims, is a monument to the man's bronzed and exaggerated style. His firm manages the tower that gangsters, gamblers, celebrities, and billionaires have called home, and he helped search for and screen some of his neighbors. A directory assembled by the Bloomberg News from hundreds of records and more than 24 interviews provides a map to Trump's life. Michael Jackson. Johnny Carson. Not a criminal as far as I know. And Liberace. Also not criminal, but weird. All lived in the building. And so if you ever had, all those jokes about, it looks like a Liberace place. It was a Liberace place. Trump Soho co-developer, remember that whole place? Felix Sater worked on the 24th floor after going to prison a decade earlier for stabbing a man in the face with a broken margarita glass. Joseph Weichelbaum, whose helicopter company flew high rollers to Trump casinos, lived here after serving time for cocaine trafficking. Dun-dun-dun. Paul Manafort, who quit as Trump's campaign chairman amid controversy over his work for the Ukraine's ousted president, owns a condo on the 43rd floor. To me, this is the center of New York City, and New York City is the center of the world. Guido Lombardi, real estate investor who calls himself an Italian count and backs Trump, remember him, said in his 63rd floor apartment last month, hounds were attacking a fox in a portrait nearby. Central Park stretched out the window behind him, and the candidate's latest book sat at Lombardi's side. There's no central place other than this, my sex club tower. I added that part. The building is certainly the center of the billionaires universe. That is, the fake billionaire Donald Trump. Inside its zigzagging facade are condos that sit atop offices over a retail mall, as if everything he could possibly want were squeezed under one roof. There's a Trump grill, a Trump cafe, and a Trump bar. A liveried doorman greets tourists who step into a lobby with so much peachy pink Italian marble that a mountain was demolished for it, his first wife Ivana told GQ in 1984, a year after the building opened. Ew. At the other end is a 60-foot waterfall. The residents, who include not just bold-faced names, but the kinds of lawyers and businessmen found up and down Fifth Avenue, have their own side entrance, where they are taken up in elevators by men in tails who push the buttons for them. So nice. Who are they? Chuck Blazer. We've called that name before. Do you remember? He lived and worked in Trump Tower and could have used either door, therefore. The former soccer official, another FIFA guy, who pleaded guilty to racketeering and wire fraud in 2013, ran an international soccer federation on the 17th floor, where he kept a blue and yellow macaw named Max. Cats made a mess in one of his residential units, said Jill Francisco, an executive in his office. Another former soccer official, Jose Maria Marin, is living in Trump Tower now, under house arrest after pleading not guilty last year to bribery charges stemming from the same investigation. Do you remember Blazer, though? I remember we talked about just how bizarre his whole construction was and the whole world he had built around. So two of them, two of the corrupt FIFA officials just magically found themselves in the same damn building. Weird. Along with Stephen Hoffenberg, who worked in a 15th floor suite, remembers his landlord's tolerance. Trump leased space in 1993 to the debt collection executive and one-time New York Post suitor, months after he was sued by the Securities and Exchange Commission for running what was then one of the biggest Ponzi schemes ever. He's very objective, said Hoffenberg, who was indicted, went to prison for 18 years, and was released in 2013. Renting space has nothing to do with color or race or indictment. It has to do with, can you pay the rent? Hoffenberg, a born-again Christian, promised a $50 million marketing campaign this year when he started a pro-Trump super PAC called Get Our Jobs Back Incorporated. By the way, $50 million marketing campaign for Trump with his pro-Trump super PAC. How much money has actually been spent from Get Our Jobs Back Incorporated? Zero. So far, that money hasn't materialized. Weird. How could that be? Didn't Trump see it coming? I guess not. Anyway, Trump has boasted about his standards, by the way, saying he rejected Ivan Boesky, who had asked about renting office space before pleading guilty in 1987 to a charge tied to insider trading. Trump says, I got a funny feeling about his character, or rather, his lack of it. And I told him that I was sorry. He wrote in Surviving at the top. I've always been blessed with a kind of intuition about people that allows me to sense who the sleazy guys are. I should just stop it there, because the next thing he says is, and I stay far away. No, he in fact invites them to live in the building. We also mentioned, we mentioned in the last article, Weichelbaum. Remember that guy? That intuition doesn't always work. Weichelbaum, the helicopter executive, rented an apartment in another Trump building after he was indicted for cocaine trafficking in 1985. He pled guilty, and Trump called him a credit to the community in a letter on his behalf before sentencing. While Weichelbaum was behind bars, his girlfriend bought 2 units in Trump Tower, where he lived for where she lived for 5 years after, he joined her for 5 years after prison. It was fine other than parking issues, he says. Try getting a bagel or a container of milk. Well, we'll squeeze in 1 or 2 more here. Let's see. We got Mel Cooper, convicted of racketeering in 1985 for what prosecutors called mob-tied loan sharking. He bought his first 2 apartments in the building a decade later. The condo board complained in a 2007 court filing about dogs named Cookie and, remarkably enough, Cookie Jr., barking hysterically as people passed by. Cooper, who sold his units in 2013, didn't respond to any requests for comment. There's Helena Mad. We mentioned him before. Prosecutors said his Trump Tower neighbor, Vadim Trincher, ran a connected gambling ring for Russian oligarchs in his $5 million apartment. Trincher's wife still lives in the building. He's serving 5 years, starting in 2014. He didn't respond either. There's Robert Hopkins, accused of ordering a member of the rival gambling ring killed, arrested in his 59th floor duplex in 1986. Murder charges were thrown out a year later, around the time that David Bogatin, I don't know how he pronounces that name, on the 53rd floor, pleaded guilty to tax evasion. He was a Russian mobster, according to a colleague's congressional testimony. No longer owns the unit, couldn't be reached. There was, of course, the unit owned by Jean-Claude Baby Doc Duvalier as well. Also non-criminal Bruce Willis, Andrew Lloyd Webber, Paul Anka, but a few others here. However, of course, I'm running out of time because I just can't fit how many criminals actually live inside the Trump buildings into a single show. Nor can I, of course, give adequate attention to all the other fantastic stories, much more substantive, of course, which are out there and for which we will rely on the good folks of the after show to pick up the slack. Tomorrow, Friday, we'll be visited, as usual, by Josie Duffy Rice, and we'll catch up with the submissions of contributors, Rosalind McGregor and John R. as well. Plus, we've got a few more waiting in the wings to get queued up. I thank you, everybody, for all of these fantastic submissions. I need to get more disciplined in playing them on the air. It used to be so few and far between that I felt like I could play fast and loose with it. But let's catch up with these things and give everybody smart things to think and talk about on Friday during the upcoming weekend. What about today? What are you going to do to get smart? Listen to the after show. Stay tuned right here. What's next? Senior Trump campaign officials boast of those major voter suppression efforts. We'll be talking more about that. Texans are getting misleading information about whether they can vote. And a group supporting Trump releases a script for citizen journalists to use while intimidating voters at the polls. On the last half, they'll be reporting that climate change is responsible for the lowest global wine production in 20 years. And after recovering from a software glitch, NASA's Juno spacecraft prepares for its next close Jupiter flyby. All of that on the After Show with Wink and Justice coming up next. It's their Thank God It's Giovedì program on Thursdays. You never miss an opportunity, like an Italian count, to speak Italian.
From Daily Kos Radio on networksradio.com. You have been listening to the Kagro in the Morning Show
with David Waldman.
Thanks so much for listening. Yeah, I was very interested, by the way, in that voter intimidation program that Roger Stone is running. They'll be talking about that one on the after show. Most remarkable thing about that, well, amazingly, of course, those fake IDs that you can print out for yourself, they're going to challenge other people's ID fraud with fake IDs. Stay tuned to find out about that.